right, boys.
What's up, Brooks?
What's up, buddy? How's my lighting right here? We good?
You're good, man. Yeah. I just texted you hot tamale.
I just saw that.
I love this comment, Jose. Thank you, Miss Nature. Make sure you sign up. Did you see that? Go. The coolest. All right, we are here. Huge shout out to the coolest for watching us on TV tonight from wherever you are. Hopefully you're live here in Austin. We got some cool cats and kittens tonight. I don't know, is that a thing? People say that?
I don't think anybody says that.
Oh, no, that's the chick from Lion King that says you cool cat and kittens. Man, I swear I have not watched that.
Nala?
So today's title, I'm going to jump in the title real quick, and I'm going to introduce everybody. Biggest lies being told about the housing market. You know, there's a lot of things that are going on in the market, and I see so many articles and people saying so many things on the channel. So I definitely want to just talk about some of the things that we're seeing just going on. Brooks is a caveat. All right. We are all realtors except for Sarah, but she's in the business. So people in the comment section are immediately going to say you're realtors just selling stuff. I want to put something out there. When we talk about this, a lot of people either buy or sell that never even call us or work with us. So when we say these things and we talk about what's happening, sometimes it doesn't even impact us or affect us. So people can take this information how they want. Just know we are all realtors or mortgage professionals in this industry as a caveat. Just so I know you're going to start getting cranky in the comments. You always do. But I love great comments like this one from Aaron. What up, man? All right, let's get into it. Brooks Landry, the Bay Area. I just for you, Brooks, I put up my Dodger gear right here. Yeah. We got Brooks Landry from the Bay Area. If you are looking to be part of the California exodus and leave California for Austin or Florida, give Brooks a call. He is the man. He's crushing over there. Check out his IG. Brooks Landry's killing it. We got Sarah back on the channel. She's going to drop some loan knowledge. And Ian of Austin, as always, my friend. Good to see you.
Good man.
Let's roll.
Let's roll. All right. So I just want to jump straight into things. Brooks, real quick, tell us about yourself, and then we're going to roll.
Yeah. So, I mean, you referenced the Dodgers. I'm not a Dodgers fan.
I know you're not.
No. Oh, gotcha. No, I'm originally from the East Coast. Moved to California years ago, and immediately got into the mortgage industry. And then 7 years later, got into real estate. And I've been in residential for the past 12 years here in the Bay Area. So I feel like I've been around these blocks a couple times. I've hit a couple of shifting markets, and I don't know how Sarah does it with loans. Drives me nuts. I had to get the hell out of there. So, hats off to you. But that's me in a nutshell.
Brooks, will there ever be a time where there are more people moving to California than there are leaving California?
I don't believe so. I think that's going to be a whiles down the way. It was funny because as Jeremy was saying that, I was like, well, if anybody from Austin wants to take off and come to California, pay some aggressive taxes and whatnot. But listen, it's beautiful. I wanted to move. I moved out here years ago, and I'm not going anywhere. I got my wife and the kiddos, and I'm stuck for now.
I mean, we tried when we hung out in San Antonio. I really tried hard to get you to move out here. It just was not happening. You know, you have a really good story about the 2008 crash, and I think it'll be a good story for kind of what we're talking about here today. So we'll talk about your story. I mean, if you'll indulge us and talk
Sure.
to us about your scenario and what happened, you know, up to you. But it'd be cool to talk about that.
I mean, yeah,
Sarah,
you put me on the spot right there. So no, I'm just joking.
no, you don't have to. No,
I'm just
I
joking.
think,
I'm 100.
well,
I'm
because
an
I mean,
open book.
look, a lot of people are, when they think about a recession or what's happening, they automatically go back to 2008. You know, you have a lot of people in media saying that, oh, this is going to be worse than 2008. Then you have other people saying it's not. Elon Musk put out something or talked about something, which we'll reference. And he basically said if the Fed doesn't stop all these rate hikes, you're going to see a massive turn in the economy. So we'll talk about that in a second. Sarah, you're on the spot here. Good or bad news coming out of the mortgage world right now?
Actually, it's been good. So Jerome Powell came out today and made some comments, and they were positive. He actually, I mean, we have the same, you know, we're taking the inflation seriously, combating inflation and all of that. But he finally came out and said that we are considering decreasing the amount of the rate hikes that we'll be doing moving forward, and talked about doing only half a bip rate hike in December, and possibly decreasing after that, because they're starting, the CPI report came out on the 10th of this month, and that showed that inflation was finally starting to moderate. And it's a more current data point than some of the data that the Fed has been looking at. So that actually started having interest rates decrease a little bit. And then tomorrow we have the PCE report coming out, which is like the Fed's main report that they look at. And there is a strong indicator that that will actually show a better sign that inflation is starting to moderate, which means and start coming down a little bit. So everything's working. So I think that, you know, things are heading in the right direction. Interest rates are starting to be a little bit better. On another side, you know, the new 2023 increases, conforming rate loan limit increases came out. So those are going to be higher. So it'll allow more people to get conforming loans, which are like conventional loans versus jumbo, which would help a lot of folks out. But yeah, I mean, we are slowly heading in the right direction. It's, you know, and I think that's all really good to hear, especially to the public where everything's so doom and gloom right now. Oh, no, I can't hear you.
Oh, Brooks, what are your thoughts on that? Because you just did a video about this.
Yeah, so we'll probably be putting it out tomorrow, the next day or so. I mean, that's going to help out here in the Bay Area, especially with those loan limits going a little bit higher in the $1 million range. As you were saying that, Sarah, I wanted to get your thoughts on just first-time home buyers coming into that. How much more does that open it up to, you know, people possibly that were on the fence before, maybe had stopped at the beginning of the year and said, let's wait this thing out? Are you seeing more calls? I've been talking with lenders. They're saying I'm getting more calls now. And personally, myself, my real estate business, I've had more contact with buyers over the past probably 2 weeks than I have in the previous maybe 3 months. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen a huge increase in applications and phone calls in my office as well over this past month. And it's been really nice. And I think the main thing too, I don't know if it's just me getting the word out as well to the people I work with and partners and people I've helped and them spreading it, or if it's other things that they're seeing here and there from, you know, like channels and from content that you guys put out as well. But there is an increase in first-time home buyers. I've just, you know, so many more first-time home buyers that we've helped this month. It's such a great opportunity right now. And when they see that and they see it for themselves, it's so great. I have a borrower that closed a week ago that got money back at closing. They were able, you know, and I haven't been able to say that for years. And everyone, a lot of the first-time home buyers are getting into homes. I have a couple that are under contract for under 300,000, which we haven't seen in a long time, or getting closing costs negotiated. And I have one girl, sorry, I don't mean to go on a rant, but I have one girl in Houston, single mom, and she was like, oh, my dad's telling me not to buy. It's a horrible time to buy. And he's not in the industry, but he had bought investment properties, you know, previously years ago. And now she's under contract. She's closing on a home in an area she was dying to get into because we had a chat about where the market really was, but she's not going to tell him until after they close on the house because she doesn't want him to tell her what a bad idea it is.
Closure.
It's
Yeah.
not. but it works for her. All the numbers work for her, and she's getting into a school district that's perfect for her son. And that was what was most important to her. So I think it's a great opportunity right now. It's just making sure that, you know, you're educated to know that and not be fearful.
Yeah. I think that's a good point you make there. Because what I'm hearing, and I'm sure you are hearing this too, everything I read, it's like everything's doom and gloom. And then I think for a while there, really starting in May, people heard that market was going to crash and all this stuff, and the market came down. And what's really interesting, if you look at the prices and everything from 2008 to 2009, 2010, interest rates almost kissed, literally in 2010, almost kissed 7%. Now, granted, prices are a lot lower than to now, but still we're kind of seeing 7%. And then we're starting to see the backside of that. So, and then you saw prices in like 2009 drop pretty precipitously and they leveled out. Well, I got your backs, everybody here. Oh, my aunt. No, here you go. I mean, this is the Austin numbers. I mean, we saw a pretty big spike and it's been level the last 3 months. I'm curious to see what happens to the November numbers. I think we're going to see a lot less closings in November. And so this number could go down in November, and then the media is going to bounce back in on that. But what I think you're seeing is people seeing that prices are coming down. They're doing the math finally on what it actually costs. And I'm going to show you something right here, because I did the math for people. And I think this is the misconception that everything's so expensive. Everybody's always saying Austin's so expensive. Well, number one, if you were to buy a home at the peak in May at 667, the interest rates back in May, I did the math, were 5.6%. I already did it for you here. They're at 5.6%. That was back in May. So your mortgage with 20% down, right, on 667 was almost $4,000 in Austin off the median, if you were buying the median. Now, if we look at right now, we're at 6.7%, right? I showed you, where'd it go? Boom. I mean, I did 6.7, so I did a little bit higher. We're at 6.63. 6.7, you're at 3,700. Now, again, you're spending a lot more, and this is at 550, which is the median right now. You're at 30, you're actually less than you were. And then again, if you could potentially refinance in the future, that's something I don't want to just tell people like, oh, you're going to be able to refinance in 18 months and it's all rainbows and unicorns. I don't want to say that. Yeah. But if you did refinance, or maybe Sarah will probably tell you in a minute here about a 3-2-1 buy down or one of those other loans, like this isn't that bad. It's actually cheaper than the height of the market. And I think people are starting to stop listening to the noise and they're starting to actually do the math. And here's the other thing that's pretty interesting. 20% down on 550 is a lot less than 20% down on 667. Right.
Well, and then also you have to think at the height of it, people are also putting down over asking to win the deal, right? So you're going to have that 20% down plus the extra 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever it was to win that deal. So it was even more expensive to purchase at the height when you put all those numbers together, right?
Yeah. And real quick, I want to get to this point that Aaron made. This is really important, and I think people don't realize this. So in Austin, and you could talk about the Bay Area in a second, but in Austin, we saw at the peak was like 40% increase, right? From 2020 to then, 40% increase. We've seen the market come down about 16%. If you do the math on it, it's around 16%. Where's my chart here? It's about a 16% decrease. If you were actually do the math, Austin sees about a 6 to 9% increase in an average market year. Well, that puts us really close to being now at what we would have been over the last 2 years. If you do the math on that and the linear graph on that, if you do a 9%, that's 18% over 2 years. If you go by 9%, we're down to about like 22% from the low back then. So we are pretty much back on track to where we would have been without the pandemic craze. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for here in the Bay, it's where I sell a majority, and you're pretty familiar with the areas that I work in here in the East Bay, San Ramon Valley, Danville space. The property values have had a significant.
Shout out Brooks Landry.
Oh. Sorry, Oh, I'm over here yapping. I'm like, did I mute myself? So, I mean, we're definitely seeing something comparable to that as well. What we're noticing a lot of, and kind of going back to Sarah, what you were mentioning with going over asking, paying 100, like out here, we were seeing multiple offers, 20, 30, 40, 50 offers on a property. And, hopefully you're sitting down, but if you haven't heard, a lot of these people are going like 300, 400,000 over the asking price, an asking price that was aggressively pushed up to where it was before. So obviously there was a lot of kind of give and take there. What we're starting to see, or we started to see about 2 or 3 months ago, it really kind of kicked in, was sellers kind of panicking. And when their home wasn't selling in the first couple days, the first week, it was, Jesus, we got to drop this immediately. And we're seeing massive price reductions, where I think sellers, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying before, is just educating the clients, having an agent that's familiar with that area and letting them know, hey, if your home sits on the market for 30 days, it's not, that's not bad. That's a healthy market. We were so used to properties selling in a day, 2 days before they ever even hit the market at astronomical prices. The psychological aspect kicked in and was like, God, something wrong with my home. Let's drop it 200 grand. And then the next guy would list the home 200 lower. And then the next guy will list it at 100 lower. And then we're just like plummeting. And so, yeah, it's been a little chaotic out here. We're kind of punch drunk here in the Bay Area, to say the least.
Ian, you were making a good point earlier about the amount of homes hitting the market. Why don't you talk about that? Because it goes into Brooke's point.
Oh, the amount of homes. Yeah. So in this last week, we had about 260 active listings, which, I mean, depending on how you have your sections sorted, but it's really interesting because it was 1,000 just 2 months back. Like it was such a big dip, but that's also a seasonal expectation, right? We've seen that happen a lot anyway. So also, another thing that I've been hearing is new construction. So I didn't get your take on new construction loans, Sarah. I know you said that there were new loans, but I was curious how many of those were new construction, just because they're putting out all sorts of incentives for people.
Well, and that's a good point, Ian. I was on a property tour a week ago for a new listing I had in High Point. And on the property tour, the agent said something I had never thought about. So she said, all these homes are starting to sit on the market longer and longer because all the new build inventory that was supposed to be in like July is now finally getting ready. And all these builders are trying to add all these incentives to close before the end of the year. And so all these buyers that are looking at, resale are now going, oh, well, I'm going to get 30 grand in incentives plus a better price. So I'm going to go to new build. I didn't even think about that. And here's an example of what just happened. My listing over here, we're listed really competitively. There's a neighborhood over, and I told my client, like, hey, there's another neighborhood that's around the corner. They build the same floor plan. It's brand new. Their house is pretty much brand new as well. And they got pretty much the same price we were at with 30 grand in incentives to go buy the new build that had just come back on the market. It went from $1 million down to 925. So, yeah. I mean, it's what that agent said had not registered to me, or it hadn't occurred to me that was what was going to happen to resale. So I think, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think at the beginning of the year, these builders aren't going to be as incentivized to mark everything down.
We're back in a situation where if you have a listing that's anywhere near new construction, now that's competition, where for about a year and a half, there was it didn't matter because the builders couldn't actually sell a house in the area.
Yeah, there was nothing available. But yeah, and I mean, you're right. That's what it used to be before the craziness happened. Like it used to be like you knew if you bought into a new build community that you were going to have a really hard time to sell that competitively when someone could come in and just build a new home from scratch there's no waiting time and you getting incentives. I mean, as far as to answer your question earlier, what I'm seeing is I have a lot of resales right now. I do have a couple new builds that are closing before the end of the year that I'm working with. And then the rest of them, honestly, I've had several people that have canceled and terminated their new construction contracts because they were able to get a deal on another home with another new construction with another builder that was ready to go and get incentives that they weren't getting before. And they were okay with losing the earnest money. And then the other one was, or they were under contract for like $1 million home, but it was maybe not their primary investment. And they were worried about the economy and they felt it was overextending themselves. And so they decided that they could get a resale or another property that was comparative for a lot cheaper. And so they decided to back out. So I've seen that quite a bit recently too.
You know, I just had a cancellation yesterday. It was I wouldn't say it's a similar situation, but they canceled what would have been an investment property because now they want to focus on a primary because they have the options, right? Where they wouldn't have had the options a year ago when they started this build. And that brings me to the next question. And I want to see this in the comments. How many people think they got the house they would have bought if they had options?
It's a great question.
That's interesting, right? That's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, that's a gregreat question.
That's a great question. I mean, I literally bought my house in May to leave school districts. I'm in Sarah's school district now. Sarah's my neighbor now. My house, like, I love the neighborhood. I don't really love my new house. Like, you know, I don't have a pool like I had in the old house. And so, and then my clients just listed a home that I would have actually rather bought than the one we bought. And I'm like,
right. I wanted that one. I could have got that one
for less money than we bought our home. So, I mean, you know, what's funny is like everybody's like, oh, you realtors. I lost money. I lost money buying the height, just like everybody else did that bought in the height, right? But look, I'm not worried about this year. I'm not worried about next year. I'm worried about 6 or 7 years from now when I'm going to go sell. That's what I'm worried about, not right now.
But you bought the neighborhood first and the home second, and that's the real estate. That's right, and that's you always look for that home in that neighborhood and whatever you can adjust and add on to it. Kind of going back to what Ewan was saying as far as cancellations and Sarah as well. I think there was a report something along the lines of like 18% of transactions were canceled in October alone. Some astronomical number in Allentown, Pennsylvania, had 55% of escrows fall out of escrow in October alone. Mind-blowing. So I mean, just we are obviously seeing quite a bit of it. We're seeing very few homes hit the market. It's that time of year where it's, you know, you're seasonally you're not going to have as many homes hit the market. We've got, in my particular area, I think something like 62 homes for sale in the entire city of like, 70,000 homes. So there's very little, there's basically nothing on the market. What we are seeing is an aggressive uptick in OpenDoor listings in our area that have been sitting on the market for 90, 100, 120 days, just blowing the days on market through the roof.
Wait. Is it an uptick, or have they always been sitting there and now because everything else is gone, that's all you're seeing left?
That's all we see. It's fun. It's like crazy. We had never seen the signs in the neighborhoods before, in the area before, and you're just driving by. Like, how long has that been on the market? Check the MLS. You're talking 120, 130. Average days on market here was about 48, but you include those into it, you're talking about 63 days DOM for those guys. But it's an interesting time for those guys.
Well, and what's interesting, and I think it was about a week ago, I did a reel on my Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, you should, at The Real Jeremy Knight. Also follow Brooks at Edom Austin and Loans with Sarah. But what was it they lost in Q3? They lost like 1.3, or no, it was just about $1 billion. OpenDoor lost almost $1 billion. Now that's Q3, right? Yeah. Now, if you look at it, they're still up year over year. Right, from year over year. And that's why I think you're kind of skewed when you look at the real estate numbers right now, year over year. That's why I put up the graph that I do about the month over month. I think it's important to look at both and understand what's going on. But they're still up, but that was Q3. How much did they lose in Q4?
Well,
it's going to be brutal.
And we've talked about this on the channel a few times. Like, we have to think about the business as a business and it being compartmentalized. So they have to have a narrative for having these houses and letting them sit or overbuying or whatever. But they had to have made a strong amount of income on the sales side of the business where they're selling leads and that back to realtors. So I don't know. I didn't look at that part of the report, but I just find it hard to believe that they flat out just lost that much money and didn't have some kind of backup. Like, how do you do that as a business? You didn't have any kind of contingency.
Do you see a lot of those in Texas? A lot of OpenDoor? I'm assuming it's probably all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That brings me to a pretty, I mean, we're talking about the lies that are being told. I think it was you, Brooks, who might have put out this, and maybe I could be wrong, but there was an article, and I actually referenced this article, and I read the article, and I did a small little video about it. But what was it? There was this article came out. I think it was Inman put out this article. Like 37% of realtors didn't make their payments for their office buildings, and when you got down to the very bottom of the article, it was 37% of business owners.
Yeah.
So, and that was kind of like, what that, like, be honest, like, just be honest. And then, there's an article today, I'll bring it up in a second, talking about the number of sublets for commercial spaces in Austin is that it's like grown 201%. Mm-hmm. So commercial might start to get hit again because all these, like, Facebook didn't use all the spaces they were looking at here in Austin. You have Facebook. So the funny thing is, like, Facebook announced they were laying off 10,000 people and everybody's like, oh, this is going to crush Austin. The numbers for the number of layoffs in Austin was 222. It's not that big when you're at 2.7% percent unemployment rate. So anyway, I'll let you talk.
I think you're right. It's putting everything into context when you're looking at these numbers. I feel like a lot of these articles and these headlines are just like clickbait, and it's just trying to be like, okay, well, let's take this number and let's skew it and take it out of context. And that goes into the fear mongering and everything else. I mean, it goes with the whole, I know I shared an article with you, that was posted a couple of days ago, and it was about, oh, we're in a housing's going to crash. It's like 2008, we're in a bubble and it's awful. And everything's like, home prices have decreased. And it's like, we've seen a decrease, but it's like about nationally, it's like 1.5%. After, from 2013 to current, we have 115% increase. Like in the last 2 years, it was 39%. So, I mean, yes, we do, but let's put it into context, right? And I think that's the big thing is people wanting to find individuals or professionals that can put things into context for them so they know what the real story is versus what the manipulated story is.
Yeah. What's the angle for Inman with that? I mean, is it more or less to beat down the agents? Is that kind of that? I mean, I still don't understand.
Look, if you look at Inman, they are a clickbait publication. Now, look, I have no problem with clickbait. If you've seen any of my titles or thumbnails on this channel, I am the king of clickbait. And the other king of clickbait is no longer on YouTube, though. Somebody pointed out that Reventure decided that he's going to get called out really quickly in the next year when it doesn't crash as much as he said it was. So he's taking some personal time. Anyway, I forgot my whole point, but I mean, look, I think Inman really caters towards realtors. They always want to fight between KW. They want to fight between Compass. They want to fight between everybody they can get. Even the Real Deal tried to pick a fight with Compass not too long ago. And it's clickbait. It's clickbait for realtors because, look, realtors are scared right now. Look, the market, I mean, if you look last year, it just Austin specific, we only had this year in October, it was like 735 closings or something like that, which is tiny. It was like 2,400 for our MSA. If you look at the year before that, it was like 3,500, 4,000. I mean, we were down 40%. So look, realtors are hurting. Let's just be completely honest. There's a lot of realtors I know that are not doing the same business that they were years ago. So I think what you're going to see too is, you're going to see some people have to go back to work, unfortunately.
You're talking about a publication that is built to sell to realtors, and now it's losing half of its subscribers.
Right.
So it has to do something to interrupt the pattern and to get people to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough business as it is. Let me rephrase this. Everybody believes that this is an easy business to get into, but until you get into it and you're like, oh, what's the next move? What's the next step? I don't think there's been an agent that I've talked to. And I talk to quite a bit all the time that are basically like, we're losing money left and right. I've done a third of the amount of business that I did last year. Everybody that I talked to. And I think this is where you're starting to see a lot of agents kind of turn and kind of join bigger teams or just join kind of the bigger hitters and try to get some business off open houses, off leads, off Sphere that they have as well. So this is a time where everybody pivots.
Or they're joining brokerages like Real Broker with a lot less fees, a lot less monthly fees. And you have a great, network of amazing content creators that are doing amazing things. Like, I don't know, like the 3 people on this podcast right now. Sarah, you're involved in that too. Yeah. Alan says most of it. Alan, what business are you going to forget? So most of my friends are disappearing from the office. That actually goes back to Aaron's point. I want to talk about this. I think this is a really, really good point to what we're actually seeing happen in the market right now. We've made the stat, and I've told you the stat several times. It's over 50% of the homes on the market right now. And think about that, 25% of the market right now in Austin is new construction sitting there. Another 25 to almost 30% is sitting vacant. So out of the 10,800 homes that are on the market, more than half, almost 60% are vacant. A lot of it might have to be return to office. I have clients that are putting their homes on the market for return to office. Are you seeing a big influx back in California with return to office?
Not as much. I mean, naturally, with Silicon Valley being 30 minutes away, we're going to start feeling the layoffs of a lot of my clients. A majority of my clients are kind of, engineers, higher level engineers, either run tech companies or being a part of it. I'll start to feel that, I think, unfortunately, towards the beginning of the year with all the layoffs. But no, for the most part, it's only a 30-minute drive. We've had a lot of people kind of move a little bit further out past the suburbs when the pandemic hit and when everybody was pretty heavy on the work from home. But no, we haven't really felt much of that yet.
I still ask it. I have someone call me today that's moving out from Florida. And I was like, okay. I was like, so, and he's like, oh, I got a new job. I'm like, okay, great. Have you started it yet? Where is it located? Are you remote? Is it permanent? Are you, just so we could have that conversation. So, they can be fully aware. And luckily they are. And they said it's supposed to stay fully remote, but it's all things to take in consideration.
That's a really interesting stat for you, Sarah. I don't know if you keep track of this, but man, I'd love it if you did, with the how many people are remote workers, especially around here. Yeah. That would be just great to know and see how that's charting.
For sure. That's definitely a stat that I don't keep. It's probably something that I could put together. I will say that I did see obviously an increase over the last 2 years of remote workers, mainly in the tech field. Well,
I think it's skewed right now because you had so many different investors coming in, but I'm talking remote primary post pandemic, right? Like how many people are you going to have remote versus
It is interesting. It's something that I can start tracking. I'll be curious. 6 months from now, 12 months from now, we'll touch base.
Sarah, how much would you say, rough estimate, the movement from California to Texas, those applications? If you were or have you tracked that, or what would you give kind of a ballpark?
So I have had I don't track it. I would say that I have probably at least a quarter to a third probably of my clients that come from California or relocate from California this last year. And it's nice because I can bond because I have family out there. I'm an Austinite, even though I was technically born in California, but I've been here since I was 3, so I'm an Austinite. But yeah, no, it's still quite a bit of people I have coming out from there.
Yeah. You're a California guy, Jeremy.
I don't know what you're talking about.
At its core.
I went to Arizona State and I was born in Phoenix. So I usually start with that anytime I talk to people here. And then when somebody says, oh, I'm moving from San Diego, I'm like, oh yeah, I moved from there. So the title of this, we're talking about myths and lies. What are some other myths and lies that you're seeing currently in the market and just in general? Brooks, I think you had a good one that you had texted me.
Did I text
or
you?
Ian I know Ian texted me a few.
So one of them is no one is buying in this market, which is just completely false. I've had just like you said, Brooks, I've had kind of an influx of people coming in the last couple of weeks. And I was like, it's Thanksgiving. Hey, it's Thanksgiving. Okay, I'm out. But things like, and I'm just kidding. I appreciate those calls. I love it. But things like multifamily, I've had an increase in that. People getting excited about that. People getting leases. I've had a lot of lease calls.
Are they short term? Are they looking for like a 6 to 8 month deal? Or
no. They're like, we're gonna lease here for a minute, and they're spending money. Yeah. But I think when you're looking at the leases versus what they have to prepare to buy and the uncertainty, They're like, we'll chill for a year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I like exactly that. And then you touched on it too, Jeremy, with the biggest misconception is the crash thing that you always hear a lot. I mean, we're not in that boat. I don't see any reason why we would be in that boat. But I have, again, kind of going back on everything, just the amount of interest to purchase, or even just pre-listing packages, kind of getting things going for the first quarter next year. I've seen just an increase on that. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how this fourth quarter plays out going into next year.
Well, Sarah, you might know this. What was the increase in mortgage applications over the last quarter or 2 weeks? Wasn't it up like 2.8% or something like that?
It was up 3%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, 3% is not huge, but is that month over month or is that year over year?
It's month over month. Year over year, they were still down.
Yeah, I would imagine it's down pretty heavily. Okay. So, I mean, look, you're seeing people coming back to the market. I mean, we're all getting calls again. Let's open up our crystal ball here and let's talk about some things that we might see next year, because I'm getting a lot of people calling me that are early next year, in the middle of next year. You all are as well. Here's some things I'm thinking about going into next year. Number one, how much did builders stop building? A. B, because like builders, I mean, what I mean stop building is we had Matt Holm on the channel last week, and Matt was like, look, I have all these developers that are pulling back from building. So will that impact 2023's inventory? You know, here in Austin, we looked at inventory at the end of last year, down around the 3,000 mark. We started at the beginning of the year at 1,800 units. Now we're 1,800. Let me say that again, 1,800. And now we're at 10,000. So, I mean, it's a pretty big jump. What happens with pricing and everything next year? Does inventory drop because more people jump back in the pool, or do more sellers feel the pinch from losing jobs, from, finally having to, pay back stuff, from not having to pay mortgages or whatever, from, 2020, all the pandemic stuff? Do we see, I mean, starting next year, we're, 4 times as much inventory. Do we start the next year seeing even more inventory, or is it just flat? I put this poll out on my channel, and I would say about 50% of people said that next year is just going to be flat. And then the other was broken down to, you're going to see a crash like 25%, who knows? And like 9% was it'll increase. So what are your thoughts on inventory and going into next year? Like, I want to hear from all three of you. We'll start with Brooks, because you're handsome.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's going to be flat. I mean, out here in the Bay Area, that I know is anybody that I speak to, it's any realtor, they're anticipating more business going into next year, but I still think there's a little bit of uncertainty or consumer confidence issue with buyers, and just not knowing exactly which way rates are going to go. We have little inventory, if any inventory, out here right now, but the problem is nobody's buying. We have no offers, and if the offers we're getting are mind-blowingly low compared to where actual comparable sales have sold recently. So I think it's flat. I'm not anticipating. I think 2023 on a realtor side, as far as a business owner, we just kind of have to take the punches and be able to somehow navigate through it until it picks up a little bit more. I do anticipate inflation easing a little bit and starting to see a little bit of hope for rates, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Ian?
I love how you handed it off to him. It's like you've done this before.
Similar to what you said, with just realtors kind of having to lay low, I guess is the word. Right now, I have an agent. He does basically investments only, and he said his business is exactly the same. Nothing's changed. Like people that are purchasing like I said, multifamily or something, and they're getting nothing has changed for him. It's your single family residential realtor that's getting hit a little bit. But I think to answer the question, it's more of I have to see how the employment rates are going to go. And then I'm still going to lean into the return to office, because if you have too many people that are forced to return to office and they're used to being able to stay remote, that's going to change the landscape of Austin. And I don't know that. I know we don't have the answers for any of this, but I really don't know that. That's the only thing that kind of frightens me even a little.
Yeah.
I mean, Sarah, you're looking at rates. You know, Ian and I did a prediction with, who was it? Was it Trey? Where we said, you know, we all guessed where rates would be. Trey said at the end of by the end of the year, Trey said 5%. I think you said 5.5%. I said they'd be at 6%. We're looking at, if Jerome Powell doesn't hit the accelerate button like you're saying, they may potentially drop. I'm not saying they will, but they may potentially. So what are you thinking rates are going to go into, and how does that impact next year?
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Jeremy said they're going to drop. Rates are going to drop.
Well, hey, I'm closest. Well, I mean, Price is Right rules. I'm over, right? Because I said 6%. Yeah. We're at 6 point. No, I'm under. So I'm closest. So here we go.
$1.
Yeah. So I would say that based off of where the market stands today and with the news that came out today too, that we are starting to see that inflation come down. We're starting to see that it's working, right? So before I was predicting that towards the end of next year, we would be in the 5s. Now I'm actually predicting that by the end of the first half of the year, we should be in the 5s and we should be closer to 5% if things stay on the current trajectory that they're on. I will say this, that once rates start coming down next year, like if they do, I won't say once they do, because again, I don't have a crystal ball either. And I can't say, yes, for sure this is happening, because I have no idea. Anything can happen. Monkeys can start ruling the world. I don't know. But so I would say that if rates do start coming down next year, that is probably going to start an acceleration again. With home prices, and then also people getting back on the market to buy. And there's a lot, and because there isn't that much supply, that's what's going to start driving, I believe, will start driving home prices back up again if that happens. Because now if rates come down, it becomes more affordable. Those buyers are getting off the fence. They're getting back into the market. And now it's super competitive again because there's not a lot of listings or home inventory available. And even I was putting some numbers together actually, but this goes back to why this isn't 2008 and why isn't a housing crash, is because in like 2007, right, there was 4 million homes for sale versus today where there's 1.22 million. And builders were still putting homes out even though people weren't buying, like builders were still like producing and getting homes and building. Today, they've started decreasing. Builders aren't putting those homes out anymore. So builders today, they learned their lesson. Their building starts are down 22%. Permits are down 21%. So they know that they won't get into the same trouble they did before. That goes back to basic supply and demand, right?
Builder confidence has been, for the last 3-4 months, as lowest it's ever been.
Yeah. And then there's also the additional things, like we're more heavily regulated. Loans are completely different. People aren't in these like, hey, breathe on some glass, you get a loan, right? Like it's not like that anymore. So, I mean, so the type of financing is safer. And then also people have more equity in their home today. The average equity back in 2007, 2008 was 19%. Think about that. And then today it's actually 58%. So if people were to get into some bad times, or, if we're in a recession or not in a recession yet, just depending on where you are with that, people can tap into that equity because it's there and it's available. They maybe wouldn't like to, but they have more options than what they did back in that time frame. But anyway, those are just some things contributing to why it's not a bubble. And why I think that when rates at whatever point do come down, that it will increase purchase prices and be accelerated, and everything will be kind of accelerated again, be more competitive.
I'm going to say my best guess for the Austin area next year. I'm curious to hear what, unless you said it earlier and I missed it, Brooks. My best guess for the Austin area next year is this. All right, so this is MSA, right? I'll go back and forth between the two. We're looking at MSA. It peaked at 550. We're up to 474. We finally saw a little bounce back in here from September, October, barely. I think what you're going to see, and I'm curious to see the numbers for November, but I think November, we're not going to be at 555 in November. I'm looking at things right now, unless things dramatically change in the numbers I'm looking at, we're going to probably see a decrease down to probably 540, maybe 535 in Austin. So I'm predicting that this will come down a little bit more. But what I'm going to say is we'll start seeing negative numbers for the first time in a very long time. And those negative numbers are going to continue all the way through this line. Like if I were to draw a line on this, we're going to be under this huge hump of 667, and we'll end up the year positive because we'll be so negative at the end of the year. Does that make sense?
From being negative at the positive and the end of the year being up. Yep.
Right. So let's say we end this year in Austin at 525. And we may not drop that far. We may stay level. I don't know. But let's say we end the year at 525. Well, that means we already ended the year negative because last year was 555 at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. If we did nothing but stay level till the end of the year in Austin, we will end flat. Now, what that means, though, is starting at the beginning of the year, we're going to just be negative. Even if we just stayed level at 555 the entire year, we are going to just be negative until August. And then we'll start, and then maybe let's say we end the year at 565, 570, right? Let's say we see that from the end of this year to the end of next year, that same 6 to 9% increase that we're used to, because I think that there's some problems that we're going to see. Number one, inventory layoffs. I think those things will impact the market next year. I think you're going to still see people buying, but not in the big mass numbers they were at the beginning of this year. And I think that rates will still have an impact on that. So I'm not saying that we're going to have an amazing year next year. Now, I could be absolutely dead wrong and we just see negative, like really bad negative numbers. But I am one of the first people actually like making the point that we will see negative numbers in 2023. And that's just because year over year numbers are negative. Month over month will probably change and be positive, but nobody looks at month over month numbers. I'm the only one posting that.
But still up from the growth of 19 and 20 and
correct. So we'll still see a positive, and we'll still end the year next year positive. Mm-hmm. Year over year next year will be, I'm predicting will be over 555. How much? Maybe it's even flat. Maybe, but I'm predicting maybe 6%. Even this year, I said if you go back in, you've been on this, Sarah, you've been on here, Brooks, you're new. I've been saying for the longest time since last year, we will not see this 20, 30, 40% increase in 2022. I said that over and over and over again. I said, maybe we'll see 6 to 9%, what we normally see. What are we at right now? 4%.
Yeah.
Year over year. So, I mean, I was wrong, right? I was wrong, everybody, but I was a lot closer than saying that we're going to be 15%, 20% increase.
You know, the thing that kind of throws me with this particular guess, estimation, is because you had mentioned it earlier. You touched on the new build incentives and how many of those are being kind of front loaded right before the end of the year. And then the percent decrease. So if you have something that was listed at 875 by a new build and then ends up closing at 743, it's like, well, that's still way above the median.
Well, you know what's funny is if you go look at the price history in a lot of those new builds, Ian, they will like, I was blown away at how this worked. So I was looking at Anthem, just a prime example. This is where I started noticing it. Anthem and Kyle, they had prices when they first listed at 500, like 550, all the way up. They went up to like 600.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And now they're at like 560. They're still higher than when they first listed. So even though you're seeing a $40,000 price increase, are they really reducing from what they initially listed?
No, and they're still higher than the median is where I'm going with that, right? So if you have this heavy push to close out before the end of the year, that should sustain our median for a while, especially the houses like the OpenDoor listings that are sitting on the market and they're just going to coast right on through to 2023 without getting sold.
Jesus.
Yeah. They're just going to run that ship right into the ground.
Yeah.
But with the builder, that's kind of brings up your point earlier with why they're offering incentives, and there might be lowering price, but they're still keeping that price high. And instead, like I have a builder that is offering contract that came in, and they're giving like not over 90,000 in incentives.
Oh yeah. I mean, and for people that, I mean, I don't know if you just caught what Sarah said. If a builder is giving this incentive of $90,000, they're still listing the sales price up here. Mm-hmm. So
it's still on paper higher is what you're saying.
Say it again.
You're saying it's still year over year. The prices are still year over year higher.
Correct. The sales price will still be trending upward, even though they're offering almost 100,000, the house for 100,000 less in incentive.
I mean, marked up upgrades, those incentives can vary from closing cost credits to buy down rates to incredible market upgrades, updated whatever you're doing in incentives. I represented a developer last year on quite a few developments, and kind of learning the ins and outs about it and how he prices out specific things at the design center. The margins are insane compared to what you would actually think the cost of it actually was. So they're more apt to kind of, drop down on those, offer some flooring, offer some whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But that's where a lot of it is. Yeah, they want to save the base price as much as possible, and just start shaving off some of those incentive upgrades.
You know what's really interesting? Sorry, just a real quick point is that somebody in one of the comments, because I had made this talked about builders and like their fat margins, right? And look, everybody's got fat margins. It reminds me of Too Big to Fail, not Too Big to Fail, The Big Short. And he's like, oh, fat margins, is that a shirt for men? Anyway, I watched the shirt for men. But like the average builder's margins has always been around like 18 to 20%. Mm-hmm. And if you look at like the big three, Lennar, DR Horton, they're at like 30% right now.
Yeah.
So their margins are okay.
I will say that one thing to be on the lookout for, and I don't know if you or your clients have experienced this yet, because I was talking to a client where this was the first I heard of it, where he was canceled a contract with the builder and went with another builder where he got, a similar house, more competitive price point and incentives. And then he was telling me about these incentives, and it was like, okay, well, and it was more than what his closing costs would be. And he's talking about either doing a price reduction or what he should do with that money. And I was like, honestly, I would do, a temporary buy down, because we worked out the numbers, right? In his specific scenario, he was going to save more money monthly with that than with the price reduction. He's like, oh no, they said that I can't do. So he was going with the builder lender, because that was the only way he would get these incentives. And he's like, oh no, they told me I can't do that. If I get these incentives and go with them, they won't let me do a temporary buy down. They won't let me do these things. I have to use it for, for price reduction or for whatever. And I was like, I was like,
I've seen a few builders say that and then still get the incentives because they need to close.
I'm glad to hear that. I hope that's the case. I just thought that it was crazy that they wouldn't let them use it towards a temporary buy down. If that, in addition, if they had over too much money to use and then were closing costs to pay off. I just thought that was weird.
Real quick, Christina's in the comments. Christina, I nudged someone to have you come speak at a big event in Houston next year. So I hope they give you a call. And they loved, by the way, I'm not going to name names, but it was Tim Macy, said that he loved your talk at when you were at Vid Summit. So he wanted to have you come talk at this event they're doing in Houston. So
it's going to be a good
Macy
event.
loves you. That's what he said. He said to me on the phone. Anyway, where were we? Sorry. That was a private conversation. I could have texted that instead of saying it in front of all of you.
We were just talking about builders.
Oh, yeah. Ian, you look good, man. Make some comments.
I'm reading the Michigan thing.
Yeah, I was just reading that too.
Right? Because nobody wants to live in Michigan on purpose. But
I'm gonna hey Brooks.
I'm sorry, I left that area, right, from Chicago. So I was like, I gotta get out of there.
Hey, and speaking of Michigan, Detroit, outside of Detroit, I think it's Birmingham, December 19th. If you want to come to an event with me, Brooks, I'm gonna send you the invite and give you. We're working on details. So
shoot it over.
A speaking gig about all the fun stuff you're doing.
Let's see it.
If you have not seen Brooks' Instagram, he puts out a lot of great content. We'll pull it up in a second. But in Michigan, tons of old homes, not on the level needed to keep up with the energy efficient of green building of the rebates that can't be ignored is driving fundamentals of building there. Okay.
Yeah, but you know what they're not doing? They're not tearing down houses and building 3D printed homes either.
Yeah,
right.
I just read about that a couple of days ago. What's going on down there?
What's there is there. For the most part, for a while anyway.
I think one of the other things that I've heard a lot about as far as, what are the big lies that are going out over, like being told to people, or that I say clients, that potential buyers and buyers aren't understanding, is when they're seeing these price decreases, is that they're thinking that homes are losing value. And they're not understanding that deacceleration is not the same as devaluation or depreciation. And these homes are not depreciating. Depreciating means that, the homes are losing value because something's happening. When you lower the price, it's losing value in the home, but decelerating means that the home is still appreciating, but it's appreciating at a more standard pace or at a slower pace than it has been. And the thing is that homes are decelerating, and that's a good thing. We want that. They were appreciating at an incredibly high rate that was not sustainable. And that does not mean you're losing value or equity in your home. Homes have still appreciated, and they're still appreciating. And I think that's a big misconception. Yep. That's a fun article.
I was going to say,
yeah, you sent me this article. So, I mean, here's the headline.
I love that it ends in Jeremy
for a brutal free fall in the home prices in U.S. housing. What did you have to say about this one, Sarah?
Yeah, this was just an example of just the really, the fear mongering and the really crazy lies that are being told in the media, but it's more of taking things out of context, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. We were talking about how these numbers are being taken out of context. And they're being kind of manipulated to kind of scare people. So this is economists that made comments here, and it's not people that are housing industry experts. It's just some economists that are in the industry. You might recognize some of the names, and they're basically comparing everything, like the drops, like we talked about earlier. Like nationally, we have a 1.5% price drop, but it's after we had like a 39% increase over the last 2 years. So it's so small in the grand scheme of things, but they're making it sound like, oh, now everything's going to drop 20%. If housing prices fell 20%, that is doomsday. That's exactly what happened in 2008. That is not, we're nowhere near in a situation for that to happen, unless something new and crazy happens that isn't on the docket yet. Mm-hmm. So they're basically saying, 10%, 20%, decrease in prices, which is basically projecting doomsday, which just isn't the case. And it's going into all the things we've talked about on the stream tonight, where we're just not in the same position that we were in 2007, 2008, where that is something that's going to happen. It's not. We're stronger. We have less supply, more equity in our homes, all of that. So anyway, I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but
I think this is a good point to tell people too. Like, if you are one of those people that is thinking about buying a home, we are not sitting here telling you to go buy a home. I want to make that very, very clear. We are trying to give you all the information we can to help you see both sides of what's happening in the market. I mean, I've been telling you pretty much, I haven't said anything like super, super positive, like, oh, we're going to see huge gains next year. I've been pretty honest with what I'm seeing in the market. And I think that's what I wish we saw, was people be a little more honest and not as fearful. Now, is the market going to crash next year? It could. It's very possible. But I think we need to scale back the fear, because the one thing, like we were talking about Inman earlier, this is a perfect point to bring this up. Inman was putting out all this clickbait stuff that wasn't even true. How much of this that the media and people are putting out that's really more clickbait, that's more to drive views? I get it. I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I try to drive views. I put out a video this week about Lakeway. Nobody watched it. I put a video out last week about the market crashing, and everybody watched that video. So I get the fact that people want to click on things that make them fearful. I understand that 100%, but I think we need to take a moment to pause. Look, nobody on here is telling you to go buy a home. We're just trying to give you all the facts, and you decide what's going to be the best financial decision for yourself.
Yeah, no, that's it. I always say, any client I'm working with, I'm going to advise you as if I'd advise my family, my parents, my brother, my sister. You take that advice and move with it. If it's your time to buy a home. If you think it's your time to sell the home. If you need to downsize and upgrade, do your thing. But yeah, Sarah, we're nowhere near 08. The only thing that's comparable to 08 really right now is
rates,
the consumer confidence.
Yeah,
that's really it. When I got into the industry, I started in the mortgage industry in 2002, originating loans, and ended up moving into real estate full time in about 2009, 2010, and I started door knocking for short sales. That was essentially how I originated. I had no sphere of influence. I'm from the East Coast. I didn't know anybody out here, and that was the thing. And when I'm representing buyers in 09 and 10, the question was, Brooks, what if I just wait 6 months? We're going on down this level. Like, what happens in 6 months? And you really, everything was plummeting, right? Everybody was losing. Banks were going out of business left and right. So that's the only side of it. I do think a majority of this now, just like Jeremy had said, is that fear mongering. It's the media. It's everybody with the clickbait issues. And
well, I mean, think about it. We no longer have presidential campaigns to talk about. The only thing that you're hearing in the media is Orange Man bad and housing crisis crash, because that's all that's going to drive clicks right now. I mean, what got Trump elected was people like blowing up and just making video after video. And that's what got him elected, is people wouldn't shut up about the guy. So now we're in a spot where people are just going to not shut up about the market because they need to drive clicks. I mean, how many people in the media do you think are going to be out of business in the next few months because they don't have anything in politics to talk about? Trump stupidly went out and said he's running for president right now, which makes no sense to me. And so they have that to talk about. So that's all they're going to talk about. Trump and then this. I mean, I'm not trying to make a political point about Trump either way. I don't really give a crap. But I'm just making a point. Like, that's all you're hearing in the media right now.
Yeah.
That's all you're hearing.
Sprinkle a little Elon and Twitter into it, and I think you've got a crazy recipe. Right.
In fact, Ian and I are supposed to be at 7:30 to meet Elon tonight.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dinner?
We didn't go. We did Real Migos instead. You're welcome.
He's coming to our house.
Honestly, had we done Real Migos at 3:30, Ian and I would be hanging out with Elon right now.
Oh.
Sorry,
guys.
It's your fault, Brooks.
We should just do Real Migos from the Tesla Gigafactory.
Yeah.
You're so much cooler.
Or the new Twitter headquarters in Austin.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm going to go by there next week. I'm helping them buy. I'm just kidding. I'm not. I am.
You heard it here first.
Breaking news. I don't know much about what's happening with the Leander Springs up there. I haven't looked at it or paid attention to it in a really long time. I hope they continue with it. I think it would have been a cool idea. I've heard that they're doing some stuff like that in South Austin, but it's not through, all the votes and stuff like that.
They have a few communities that are like that already. So there's at least 2 or 3 in Houston already, right? Just those communities with the man-made water park, essentially, or man-made beaches that get people really excited. So that's when they announced Leander Springs, I was super, super excited for that. And then they announced investment opportunities. So they have this huge running mailing list for people that want to invest in the community, right? So they're building their own seed money. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. It's just been sitting there. And I think Joe said that they put up an apartment building and that's it. And I'm like, okay, well, I just want the beach. And then everything else will come. You put water there. If you build that, everyone else will show up. We need water.
Let's go to Valente.
There is some information out there that if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
I grew up out there. I know.
Goose, that's a really good one. You got to bring that one up. That is going to be really cool.
Nice.
Oh, what's about that?
Is it so the bikers have a way
to
bike down to San Antonio and go to the Alamo?
Dude,
That's
if
cool.
you look, I don't know if you're on Strava or anything like that. There are people that'll ride 50 miles a day. I'm like, who is doing this? Who is doing that? But apparently it's a good amount of people. So they need that stretch, man.
Jose, breaking news. Real Migos is going to rent out and sublease the 30 floors for like 10 cents on the dollar. So pretty great. San Antonio can bike up to Austin to get tacos.
Oh, that's funny.
I gotta send that to Tim and Trey.
Good.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Oh man, they'll love that. All right. So any other last, we're about an hour. Any other last myths, truths, or things that we should talk about?
I'm just gonna make a general statement. It's better to wait until next year to buy a house.
Okay.
Just a flat statement.
I think
if that's the truth or a lie on your own.
Well, considering if you put something under contract right now, it's pretty much going to close next year.
Yep.
I don't think it's a bad idea to look at. If you're buying something this weekend, it can close before the end of the year. I think you could get potentially a smash deal on something closing new construction by the end of the year. That might be something to look at, especially if they're going to buy down your rate and get you all that stuff. I think that might be a way to go. Do they have those save incentives next year? Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. I would, if I'm anybody right now, I'm looking at it going, I have an investor right now that they want to buy another Airbnb. And I'm like, let's wait till January. Let's maybe look at the middle of December and see, because all the prices on this stuff that we're seeing now, all the stuff we're looking at looks like crap. There's a reason why the price is coming down, right? So, and I'm saying, hey, look, let's wait till January, because there's going to be a fresh load of inventory coming up in January, February, March. But are more people jumping in that time too? That's what we got to look at.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting times the next 6 months.
Yeah.
I don't like that word interesting. You know, anytime somebody uses interesting,
I'm scared as hell.
Yeah.
I'm scared shitless.
I'm not as scared, because I legitimately, like Ian said, and you have said, I'm having a lot more people reach out to me.
Yeah.
And everybody I'm talking to, like even the clients that we've had that have now sitting on the sidelines, a lot of them are like, oh, all right, we're going to look in January, February, March. We're going to see where rates are then. So I think that's where everybody's at. I think everybody's just kind of waiting, and the numbers don't lie. I mean, I just pulled up so far in Austin. Now, this isn't a full month, but if we're looking at it, we're only about 650 closings for Austin. And last month we were at 750. So there are people still buying homes. How many? I don't know. I think people are waiting, and I think it's smart to wait. I don't think it's a bad idea to wait. I think there is a cost to waiting, though, and Sarah has talked about that in the past.
Yeah. I think that if you're interested or ready to buy a home, then go ahead and take that step and talk to somebody. Like, do your research, talk to a professional, talk to a lender you trust, talk to a realtor you trust, because I think that I hear so many people are so scared that they don't take that first step to get educated. And I think you should just have that conversation and see what's out there. And if something amazing pops up, great. Then you're prepared and you can jump on it. If nothing pops up, no worries, no pressure. You know, you can continue to wait. I think that's where I see a lot of missed opportunities, when people keep seeing things pass by that they would love to jump on. And then they're like, oh, well, I'm too scared, like, of everything I'm reading in the news. And I don't even want to try. Like, I'm not even going to get pre-approved or whatever. That's more than a ending last sentence, but.
And this is a great, great point. I don't know if you have it readily available to pull up, Sarah. Maybe I can pull it up. Tons of millennials just ready to pounce like a kitty. Good point there, Jose. I've been saying this, and nobody else is talking about this. There are more millennial buyers at that 33 age. Now, let's say that the average buying age gets pushed back because of the pandemic and everything happening right now. So let's say it's 36. There are more people in that buying age right now and over the next 8 years than any time in history.
Yeah.
No one is talking about that. Now, prices are higher. Interest rates are higher than they were 3 years ago. But that's where the market is.
But with the loan limit in uptick is going to help out a lot as well. So that's a factor.
I do have that explosive growth chart if you wanted me to share it.
Yeah. Just hit the share button on there and I can add it.
Okay. The share screen.
There you go. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Sorry.
Loans with Sarah.
That's me. So here's explosive growth chart. Let me see if I can make this bigger. So basically, this is showing how millennials, we're in this uptick right here, right? So you see this is 4 million people. So these are our home buyers. So these are our first-time home buyers. And so actually in the numbers in some studies I've been in is that we're supposed to have the highest level of first-time home buyers next year, this year, and like over the next, I think 2-3 more years. And purchases are supposed to be really good in that respect, because we just have people getting ready to buy homes. But then we'll have this little lull. So that's when we all retire. No, I'm just joking.
That's over.
Yeah. I mean, and if you think about it, what is it? Morgan Stanley put $1 billion on the side to buy single family homes.
Yeah.
I mean, so Morgan Stanley is not a dumb investment firm, right? They definitely know some things. I have a lot of money tied up with Morgan Stanley personally. So I'm hoping they go out and they buy a bunch of stuff and just sit and rent and hold it. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there like that, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
On Morgan Stanley?
Yeah.
And then buying up the property? I agree. I think they they're doing their, they're looking at the numbers, they're looking at projections, and they're being smart and with their investments because they know there's going to be a demand.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen rental market hit a little bit as far as leases? We're seeing a little bit of a dip, nothing crazy.
I think a lot of markets are, a lot of people are saying that people are moving in and cohabitating more instead of going out on their own. I think what was a median in Austin, $1,700 for like a 1-bedroom or something like that, or I don't know what size, but yeah, I mean, we've seen, we saw a pretty big increase, but let's be honest. And this is where I think that the facts matter. Last year at this time, did we see a dip in rentals? Does anybody want to talk about that? Did we see dip in rentals in November, December, October every year?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at, and this is why nobody wants to look at seasons. And this is why I was so upset with how Reventure was posting his stuff, is he didn't want to talk about cycles. He didn't understand real estate, really how it's worked. Now, he could be right on a lot of things. I'm not saying he's wrong, but how he approached it was somebody who had no idea what they were talking about and made generalities. So what really frustrates me about watching Valuetainment and the PPD podcast, I love what they do. They do a great thing saying, and I like Patrick Bet-David, but a lot of times he talks about stuff and doesn't understand it. He went out there and said, oh, foreclosures are up 700%. I'm telling you, they're up 700%. Well, if you understood anything, Patrick Bet-David, you'd actually realize that was 700% was the reason is because we didn't have anything. In fact, we didn't have anything for like a year and a half. And it was up that 1 month that you could actually start foreclosing on people. And the offset of that is it was still lower than pre-pandemic numbers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like you have to put context around some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happens. We read headlines, read half the article, and people leave out a lot of context. And that's what bothers me about a lot of the stuff that I see. I mean, what are your thoughts? Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right. That's exactly what it is. The numbers do show less than what they were before.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like 0.03% or something.
Mm-hmm.
Actually have that. Oh, it's 0.3%. I'm sorry. Foreclosures are at multi-decade lows of still 0.3%.
And I see people in the comments on my channel, right? Oh, well, I'm just ready for the foreclosures, or all the foreclosures are going to be hitting. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
No.
Are you listening to Patrick Bet-David say that they're up 700% and not understand that he doesn't know what he's talking about? Like Patrick Bet-David is a smart guy. He knows a lot of things. He's way smarter, way richer than I will ever be. Probably.
But he's an insurance guy, right?
Yeah. He sold his insurance companies. Smart guy. Mm-hmm. But just because you're smart on one thing doesn't mean you're smart on everything. Like I wouldn't be the best person to go tell you which stocks to pick.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be good at predicting who's going to win like the Super Bowl or anything about. I'm not good about sports.
Yeah. I can tell you with 100% certainty, the New England Patriots will not win the Super Bowl this year.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see. I'm a believer. I'm still a believer. One thing I don't have is a damn Dodgers hat behind me, though.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sarah, for joining us. Man, Brooks, this has been fun, man. We didn't get to your story. Maybe we'll have to bring you back for that. Ian, love you like always, man. If you're looking to buy or sell in the Austin area, Ian's your man. I can help you. I love helping people. Sarah's the woman with the loans. And Brooks Landry in the Bay Area, San Jose. There was a guy in here earlier on talking about San Jose. Brooks is your guy. We'll see you in the next one.
We're all here for y'all. See ya.